Hey guys, welcome to another Lunch with a Lawyer. That's me. My narcissistic attempt to make myself think that people really care what I had to say. But I know some of you watch these and I appreciate it. I hope it helps somewhat. Maybe give a different perspective, if nothing else. So today, I want to talk about something that I ran into this morning. Today is Super Tuesday. That's what it is today. So a lot of people are out there voting, and I got pretty political yesterday. Today, what I'm going to say touches on political, but I'll tell you why I don't think it's political. So I'm in court this morning, and there's a obvious middle-class family. They had a kid who had taken their car, had got a gun from an older dude who had since died. So this wasn't a good dude, but he was kind of, thought he was a little suburban gangster, 20-year-old. Had these kids holding his guns and drugs, apparently, and this middle-class family just gets the kid, who's a very good kid, generally doesn't have any problem. And to their surprise, this kid gets picked up with a drug and driving his mom's car while they thought he was at home. And just as this mom's describing everything, trying to get her kid out of detention, he had been detained 2 weeks for this incident. But as this mom's trying to describe, trying to get her kid and everything she'd done, and this family, it's a mom and a stepdad, but they had gone above and beyond, and I mean above and beyond. The stepdad had changed positions in his jobs, taken way less money to go from traveling on the road to being at home. The mom had adjusted her shifts. She worked nights. And this whole time I'm looking at this family. Dad's wearing nothing fancy, a standard, polo. I think it may be his work polo because he had to go to work later. Mom's wearing scrubs. She's obviously in the nursing field. She talked about that. But dad's obviously nowhere to be found. Real dad, biological dad. Obviously the stepdad was stepping up. But all I could think was this family, they didn't have a lot. They weren't expending a lot of money. They did have 5 kids, and so they chose to do that, but that's not an inordinate amount of kids. But she talked about that the issues they had with their now 15-year-old son, no, sorry, he was 16-year-old son, had started when they caught their daughter. They walked in the room, and their daughter was hanging. Now, it turns out she didn't die, and I didn't hear how bad off she was. I know that can cause brain damage or whatever, but I know she didn't die. That was brought out. But this kid and this mom walked in on his sister and her daughter hanging in her room. She'd hung herself, and that had a severe impact on him, and they had been working since that point. That was 2 years before that. They'd been working with that point for him to deal with the grief and the trauma. And there was other traumas involved. I mean, obviously, Dad wasn't in his life. That's a big trauma. But all I could think was when she talked about, and this is something I hear so much, when she talked about that stepdad would work from, he had just his schedule, so he worked 6:30 to 3:30, and mom worked 4:30 to 2:30. Here's all I could think. These were 2 reasonable, nice, intelligent people. They wanted to raise a larger family to ours, but back in my grandparents' day, this was a small family. And all I could think about was like, there's no good answer to this. That's why I say it's not political. I say it's not political because I don't know the answer. But they shouldn't have to work. This is the problem. This is where I come from. I come from this. Most of my time growing up, my mom worked a part-time to full-time job, and my dad worked a full-time job, and he worked on the road. And when he was gone, he worked on the road. He came home when I was young, But during those formative years, my oldest brother, my dad was gone a lot. He was left alone with my mom, who was trying to raise three boys, and we were terrible, terrible children. I can't tell you how bad we were. But I think that affected I still see it as affecting my brother and my middle brother. Not so much. He was closer to my age. He wasn't some of those formative years, those teenage years. And then I looked at these people that, again, dad working out of town, mom doing her best, but she's working too. And so then you go for a solution. Well, that's easy. Mom can quit her job, but she can't. And I say that's why I started with, it's not like mom was bawling out of control. These people, mom didn't have nails done. She didn't have her hair done fancy. She looked like she, just woke up and thrown on her scrubs because she didn't know how long she'd be there. I mean, it's crazy in this modern society that we formed a society where you only have to. Now I say have to. You don't have to. You don't have to have nice things. You don't have to have the nicest suits. I could probably get away with less than I don't have a lot, dude. I got like 4 suits and I'm a lawyer, okay? 4 good suits. But I could do without, I could live in a small apartment. But again, when you talk about that, there's no doubt that there's more conflicts, more assault, family violences, more trouble, more traumas when people can't get away from each other. Not only that, but when you live in a small place, the children are going to go outside more often. They're going to be exposed to people who aren't their family. They're going to be exposed to other kids who don't have good parents, and they're more likely to run astray. As I would say I did, or I maybe ran other kids astray that were better than me. But regardless, you just see this lack of square footage. Adam Carolla is a comedian, a radio host who talks about this a lot. That lack of square footage really does strongly affect people, make it way more likely to get in trouble. You could not buy as many clothes, but again, these families, they weren't in that trap. They both, I was going outside with them, they both drove modest cars, cars that would get them to work every day. Dad drove a company truck, actually, and they had said that they actually sold one of their cars to essentially pay for the attorney and to make sure the kid wouldn't get the car. But they had 3 cars and a 7-person family. Sorry, 6, because some were out of the house already. Person family. They had 3 modest cars. Dad mostly drove the work truck. That's what he drove to work. And so they don't have to. You can live like an Amish person. But to live how I live, you have, and growing up with a full-time dad and a part-time mom, you have to have that part-time mom. And to live like they did, like my mom did as a lower middle class American when she was growing up, her mom didn't work. That's what everybody did. So if you're one of those people who thinks our society is going downhill and is wondering what's going on, what's wrong with these parenting, why aren't these parents controlling those kids? Why aren't we doing better? They should take responsibility. How are you supposed to take responsibility when 2 reasonable people with reasonable jobs and a reasonable amount of kids, really, can't afford essentially to parent their kids on a regular basis? They can't afford for dad to be home every night and mom to be home all day. They can't afford that. I don't know that there is a family that can afford that. I consider myself so blessed that my wife has been able to stay home. But before that, we were both working multiple jobs coming up, and even now it's a struggle sometimes, and we live honestly very modestly compared to some other people in the standard American dream. So I know I'm rambling on, but I see this time after time, which is we've created a country, we've created an economy where we do have to have all these fancy stuff, right? I'm sure that family had a TV in every room, but TVs are now $300 a piece. We're not talking about long-term earning stuff, but rent, food, and standard things have gotten to the point where the middle class can't afford them. And I say middle class, I mean people who are moderately intelligent, who are contributing in no uncertain terms to our society and our community in a meaningful manner. Those people can't afford to do that and raise their kids. And so their kids are becoming a burden to everyone, including them. They're doing their best and they adjust their jobs and things get hard. But when they adjust their jobs and they are home more and the money's not coming in, what usually happens is then mom and dad have more arguments. So yeah, mom's home more to care for the kids, but while she's home, she's more stressful because she can't afford to care for the kids. She has to give them crappier lunches. And I'm all for, I think struggle is often good for kids. So I'm not saying let's not do that at all. But what I'm saying is that's the basis. We can concentrate on the low income people, the people on the low end of the bell curve of the spectrum that is our human economy. But I think by doing that, it's easy to dismiss those as the extreme, right? The person with 8 kids and no high school education and 6 baby daddies, whatever, what have you, all the old, an immigrant who, makes way less than minimum wage or has to work in the sun all day, every day. We can kind of dismiss those easily as the extremes. It's like, well, that's what happens. But no, I see time after time a family who wouldn't have this trouble 50 years ago. They wouldn't have this trouble. Dad had a good enough job where 50 years ago, mom could stay home. They wouldn't struggle with money enough to where it would become traumatic to the family dynamic, and they would be able to provide for their kids and stay home. So I just don't know the answer. And that's why the other thing I say, it's not political. I don't know the answer, and I don't see any politician or any political party who's really doing a concerted effort to help those people, the middle class. It seems like nobody knows what to do because those people are hardworking. They don't want to take away from anybody else because they don't want anything taken from them. They don't want to support the poor people because they're doing hard enough just keeping their family together, keeping their kids alive, keeping their kids out of prison, that they don't. So then they use that to, they don't want to take away from anybody wealthier than them. But at some point, we have to address this. Whatever the answer is, we have to address this, or it's just going to keep continuing. Okay? And I want to end with something maybe positive. That maybe if you're on that edge, that you decide to not work those extra hours. You decide to make some sacrifices, to get in that struggle, but to not let that struggle weigh you down enough to where you're traumatizing your children or whatnot. I think it would be better if we all work together to make sure our kids are doing okay. And the only way we could do that is to come together as a community, but then to make sure we're doing it ourselves, to free up our own time so that we can help ourselves and help others. And also to know that if you are middle class and you are working two sets of jobs, 2 parents work 2 full-time jobs, maybe more, you're not alone. And it's not your fault that you can't be there to parent your kids every minute of the day. And so honestly, you can't blame yourself, because I do see a lot of guilt with these families. When your kid goes a little astray, mistakes are going to happen. But know that your kid will probably be okay. He's not at that lower end. He's probably not gang banging. He's probably not going to get shot by another young kid his age. You know, he's less likely to get into drugs and end up in prison or in a coffin. But he is going to make mistakes, so you have to give him some leeway. But all that is maybe just a lesson in forgiveness today. Maybe that's all I'm saying to all you out there is just a long ramble to say that to do your best. Don't rest on what's the status quo right now. Try to really look at things and do better. Try to reduce your time at work and your time away from your kids. But at the same time, if you can't do that, if you've done your best and it's still not good enough, or even if you think maybe you could have done better and it's not good enough, forgive yourself and just from that build and get better. And this is what I see. I think the positive is this kid isn't going to end up, he's going to end up probably a very successful, very contributing member of society. And that's the hope I have. And that's why I do what I do, because I have a lot of lost kids. I got kids who are 14-year-olds going to the juvenile justice department. But I also have kids, and I say my kids, these are my clients. My kids are too young for any of that. We'll wait for that. We'll see if that happens. But I also have kids who turn it around and who go from very lost and very troubled to contributing adults who hire me to do other stuff for them, positive stuff. And so I hope this helped today. If not, just another video in the log trying to do these lunches and maybe turn my lunchtime, which I don't do a lot, don't eat a lot these days, into something positive, you know. And so I appreciate it, you guys. If you have any comments or anything, leave them down there below. I do appreciate the comments you leave. I try to respond to them, react to them. And you know, if you're into voting, go out and vote. That's a whole nother subject. But I hope you, when you do go and vote, when you do go and serve on jury members, when you do go and hear about this stuff that your friends and family members, children, and themselves are getting into, you do keep some of the stuff I say in mind. Have a good day and stay positive.